On August 3rd, in the year 1492, from the Spanish ports of Palos, the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus set sail in command of three ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina, on a journey to find a western sea route to China, India, and the fabled gold and spice islands of Asia. On October 12th, the expedition sighted land, probably Watling Island in the Bahamas, and went ashore the same day, claiming it for Spain. Later that month, Columbus sighted Cuba, which he thought was mainland China, and in December the expedition landed on Hispaniola, which Columbus thought might be Japan. He established a small colony there with 39 of his men. The explorer returned to Spain with gold, spices, and captives from the land which he had just left. He returned to Spain in March of 1493 and was received with the highest honors by the Spanish court. He was the first European to explore the Americas since the Vikings set up colonies in Greenland and Newfoundland in the 10th century. During his lifetime, Columbus led a total of 4 expeditions to the Americas, discovering various Caribbean islands, the Gulf of Mexico, and the South and Central American mainland, but never accomplished his original goal, a western ocean route to the great cities of Asia. Columbus continued his eternity in Spain in 1506 without realizing the scope of what he did achieve. He had discovered for Europe the so-called New World, whose riches over the next century would help make Spain the wealthiest and most powerful nation on earth. On August 3rd in 1846, the Donner Party encounters their first delay. An ominous sign of the troubles to come, the Donner Party finds a note warning the immigrants that their expected route through the mountains ahead is nearly impassable. The Donner Party had left Springfield, Illinois 3 months earlier. Led by 2 wealthy brothers, Jacob and George Donner, the immigrants initially followed the regular California Trail westward to Fort Bridger, Wyoming. From there, however, the immigrants decided to leave the established trail and take a new and supposedly shorter route to California laid out by an unscrupulous trail guide named Lansford Hastings. Hastings was not at Fort Bridger at the time. He was leading an earlier wagon train along his new route. He left word for the Donner Party to follow, promising that he would mark the trail for them. Reassured, the group of 89 immigrants left Fort Bridger with their 20 wagons and headed for Weber Canyon, where Hastings claimed there was an easy passage to the rugged Wasatch Mountains. On this day in 1846, they reached the head of the canyon where they found the note from Hastings attached to a forked stick. Hastings warned the Donner Party that the route ahead was more difficult than he had thought. He asked the immigrants to make camp there and wait until he could return to show them a better way. The note Hastings had left troubled the immigrants. To return to Fort Richard to pick up the established route would have meant wasting several days. They decided to wait for Hastings. After 8 days, when Hastings had still not arrived, the immigrants sent a messenger up the canyon to find the guide. The messenger returned several days later with instructions from Hastings to follow another trail, and the immigrants complied. The alternate route, however, turned out to be even worse than the Weber Canyon Road, and the immigrants had to carve a fresh road through thick trees and boulder-strewn ground. The Donner Party finally made it through the Wasatch Mountains and arrived at the Great Salt Lake. Hastings' route had cost them 18 valuable days. Unfortunately, their difficulties were only beginning. The shortcut to California had cost them many wasted days, and the Donner Party crossed the Sierra Nevada mountains late in the season. On October 28th, a heavy snowfall blocked the high mountain passes, trapping the immigrants in a frozen wilderness. Eventually reduced to cannibalism to survive, only 45 of the original 89 immigrants reached California the following year, and we remember all those who continued their eternity during the mission. On August 3rd in 1958, the U.S. nuclear submarine Nautilus accomplishes the first undersea voyage to the geographic North Pole. The world's first nuclear submarine, the Nautilus, dived at Point Barrow, Alaska, and traveled nearly 1,000 miles under the Arctic ice cap to reach the top of the world. It then steamed on to Iceland, pioneering a new and shorter route from the Pacific to the Atlantic and Europe. The USS Nautilus was constructed under the direction of U.S. Navy Captain Hyman G. Rickover, a brilliant Russian-born engineer who joined the U.S. atomic program in 1946. In 1947, he was put in charge of the Navy's nuclear propulsion program and began work on an atomic submarine. Regarded as a fanatic by his detractors, Rickover succeeded in developing and delivering the world's first nuclear submarine years ahead of schedule. In 1952, the Nautilus keel was laid by our 33rd President, Harry S. Truman. On January 21st in 1954, First Lady Mamie Eisenhower broke a bottle of champagne across its bow as it was launched into the Thames River at Groton, Connecticut. Commissioned on September 30th in 1954, it first ran under nuclear power on the morning of January 17th in 1955. Much larger than the diesel-electric submarines that preceded it, the Nautilus stretched 319 feet and displaced 3,180 tons. It could remain submerged for almost unlimited periods because its atomic engine needed no air and only a very small quantity of nuclear fuel. The uranium-powered nuclear reactor produced steam that drove propulsion turbines, allowing the Nautilus to travel underwater at speeds in excess of 20 knots. In its early years of service, the USS Nautilus broke numerous submarine travel records, and on July 23, 1958, departed Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on Operation Northwest Passage, the first crossing of the North Pole by submarine. There were 116 men aboard for this historic voyage, including Commander William R. Anderson, 111 officers and crew, and 4 civilian scientists. The Nautilus steamed north through the Bering Strait and did not surface until it reached Point Barrow, Alaska, in the Beaufort Sea, though it did send its periscope up once off the Diomedes Islands between Alaska and Siberia to check for radar bearings. On August 1st, the submarine left the north coast of Alaska and dove under the Arctic ice cap. The submarine traveled at a depth of about 500 feet, and the ice cap above varied in thickness from 10 to 50 feet, with the midnight sun of the Arctic shining in varying degrees through the blue ice. At 11:15 p.m. EDT on August 3rd in 1958, Commander Anderson announced to his crew, quote, "For the world, our country, and the Navy, the North Pole," unquote. The Nautilus passed under the geographic North Pole without pausing. The submarine next surfaced in the Greenland Sea between Spitsbergen and Greenland on August 5th. 2 days later, it ended its historic journey at Iceland. For the command during the historic journey, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, our 34th president, decorated Anderson with the Legion of Merit. After a career spanning 25 years and almost 500,000 miles steamed, the Nautilus was decommissioned on March 3rd in 1980. Designated a National Historic Landmark in 1982, the world's first nuclear submarine went on exhibit in 1986 as the historic ship Nautilus at the Submarine Force Museum in Groton, Connecticut. All historic information that was divulged and documented on this audio file can be verified on history.com.